1,700 miles from Washington, D.C., right here on American soil in the middle of the California desert. There is a city with no laws, no police, no government, no rules, nothing. 4,000 people live completely outside the system, and nobody, not even the state of California, has been able to stop it for over 70 years. This is Slab City. Today we will see the birth of this lawless city, the life inside its borders, the dark secrets nobody talks about, why the government cannot touch it, and whether it will even exist 5 years from now. The year is 1942. World War II is ripping the world apart, and the United States Marine Corps needs land fast. They need open terrain, flat ground, enough empty space to run live artillery drills without accidentally obliterating a civilian town. They scan Southern California and find exactly what they are looking for in Imperial County. A vast, baking, absolutely worthless stretch of desert that nobody had ever once thought twice about. Dead land, hostile land, land so brutally hot and so aggressively empty that not even the tumbleweeds bothered to stay. The government seizes over 600 acres, breaks ground immediately, and within months, Camp Dunlap is fully operational. Barracks, paved roads, running water, sewage systems, a complete military base rising like a fever dream out of the scorching California sand. For 3 years, soldiers train there for the brutal realities of war. And then the war ends. Victory. Soldiers go home. And the government does exactly what governments have always done with things they no longer need. They walk away without a single backward glance. By 1956, every building is demolished, every water line cut, every road left to crack and buckle in the merciless heat. The Department of Defense hands the land to California with a simple quitclaim deed. No conditions, no development plan, no instructions. Just 640 acres of cracked concrete slabs sitting in the sand like the skeleton of something that used to matter. Nobody wanted it, nobody planned for it. Nobody thought about it for even 1 second, until the drifters found it. First came veterans who remembered the base, then retirees and beaten-up RVs hunting for free camping land, then artists, then runaways. Then the People Society had completely chewed up and spat out. The broke, the broken, the addicted, the brilliant, and yes, the genuinely dangerous. 1 by 1 they arrived, then 10 by 10, then hundreds at a time. They parked trailers on the old concrete slabs, hauled water in by hand, bolted solar panels onto the roofs of converted school buses, and from absolutely nothing built something extraordinary. And because the state owned the land but never developed it, never policed it, never glanced in its direction, there was nobody left to stop them. Slab City was born, not by revolution, not by grand design, by pure, total, careless abandonment. By the quiet desperation of thousands of people who had nowhere left in the world to go. Most people picture a wasteland when they hear this, broken trailers rusting in the sun, desperate faces dissolving into the dark. What actually hits you the moment you arrive will completely rewire your brain. Pull up to Slab City on any winter morning, and the very first thing that hits you is not danger. It is not chaos. It is not the post-apocalyptic hellscape you spent the entire drive mentally preparing for. It is music. Guitar pouring from one corner, a drum circle building from another, a generator humming underneath it all like a heartbeat refusing to quit, the smell of campfire and coffee and something sizzling in a cast iron pan, strangers waving as you roll past, kids on bikes weaving across cracked concrete paths like it is any ordinary Tuesday morning. This is not a wasteland. This is a living, breathing, wildly creative civilization built entirely on rules that nobody ever once had the nerve to write down. Up to 4,000 people flood into Slab City every winter. Artists, anarchists, retired school teachers, war veterans, recovering addicts, musicians. Entire families raising young children out here in the dust and the heat and the freedom. They call themselves slabbers. They call outsiders normies. The longer you spend inside these borders, the thinner that line starts to feel. The city has its own distinct neighborhoods, each one with its own personality, its own culture, its own unspoken code that everyone somehow understands without anyone explaining it. East Jesus will stop you dead in your tracks. An outdoor art museum built entirely from things the rest of civilization threw in the garbage. Walls constructed from stacked television sets. a house engineered to look like it is slowly sinking into the earth. Towering sculptures rising from wrecked car parts and smashed computers. One of the most genuinely brilliant art environments in all of North America, built by the exact people the world had written off as worthless. Then there is The Range, a live music venue where every single Saturday night, residents perform for each other under a ceiling of desert stars. A 24-hour anarchist library where every book is yours and returning it is completely optional. A skate park, a golf course, a hostel where tourists book stays for $30 a night. And then there is Leonard Knight. Knight arrived in Slab City in 1984. He was a 53-year-old dropout, veteran, and a self-taught painter from Vermont, who had spent 17 years trying to build a hot air balloon to fly the message, "God is love," over cities across America. The balloon never flew, it rotted in the desert heat. So he decided to build a mountain instead. He started with a bucket, some adobe clay, and a pile of donated paint cans. No electricity, no running water, no plan beyond the simple idea that he would keep building until the message was impossible to miss. He built every single day for 30 years, shovel by shovel, bucket by bucket, layer by layer, using over 100,000 gallons of donated paint to cover a hillside in color and scripture so vivid it is visible from miles away across the flat desert floor. Salvation Mountain became a landmark so breathtakingly strange that people fly in from every corner of the world just to stand in front of it. The US Congress called it a national treasure. Coldplay filmed a music video there. It appeared in the film Into the Wild. And Leonard Knight built every inch of it alone, living out of a truck parked at the base in a city that the government pretended did not exist, on land nobody legally claimed, for 3 decades. That is Slab City. Not a wasteland. A place where the people the world rejected built things the world came back to see. No rent, no utility bills, no landlord, no noise complaints, no permission required. A community that rejects the system, quietly funded every month by the system's own government checks arriving in the mailbox. The most beautiful irony in modern American history. It is chaotic, dirty, completely free, unlike anything else on this planet. But here is what should be burning in your mind right now. California technically owns every inch of this land. State and federal law still applies on paper. So why, after more than 70 years, has the most powerful state government in America still never brought Slab City under control? Go back to 1961. The Department of Defense signs the land over to California with a quitclaim deed containing 0 restrictions, no conditions, no development deadline, nothing. By the time Sacramento noticed what had grown in the desert, Slab City was already massive, already deeply rooted. Removing thousands of squatters would be a logistical nightmare and a PR disaster no politician would willingly attach their name to. And the economics simply do not work. Extending utilities across miles of hostile desert, staffing a permanent police presence for thousands of people who have made resisting authority their entire identity, costs more than the land is worth by any calculation. So the state does what powerful institutions always do when a problem is expensive and messy. They look away. Local law enforcement drifts through occasionally, handles a serious crime when ignoring it becomes impossible. Otherwise leaves the slabs entirely, deliberately, completely alone. Which means Slab City governs itself. And here's where this story gets genuinely dark. When someone in Slab City steals, harms another resident, or crosses the unwritten code, the community moves immediately. No courtrooms, no lawyers, no delays. The facts get posted publicly on social media. The community judges openly. An elder delivers the verdict. Punishment is carried out within 48 hours. Not 48 days. 48 hours. Sometimes the punishment is being run out permanently. You wake up and your possessions are in the sand, and every face around you is turned away. You leave and you do not come back. Sometimes it is something that happens in the night and nobody talks about afterward. One longtime resident described it simply. Nobody calls the cops. Slab polices itself. Cross the wrong person badly enough and they will burn your home to the ground. And every single person in the community will stand there and watch without making a sound. No system, no mercy, no appeal. This is the justice that lives underneath the music and the murals. The thing the freedom-chasing documentaries leave on the cutting room floor. And it gets darker still. The summers in Slab City are not poetic. They are not liberating. They are not some beautiful test of the human spirit. They are lethal. When the temperature cracks 120 degrees Fahrenheit and the nearest air conditioning is miles away across open desert, people die. Not metaphorically. Residents are found dead inside their trailers every single summer from conditions that any hospital in America could reverse in under 1 hour. No ambulance racing down a paved street. No emergency services. Just the heat pressing down like a physical weight, and whatever comfort a neighbor with no medical training can offer before it is too late. Drug addiction runs through the veins of Slab City like a second water supply. Open use is not shameful here. It is simply part of the texture of daily life. Many people find in the slabs a freedom that genuinely begins to heal what the outside world broke in them. But others discover something far darker, that the complete absence of structure does not free them. It accelerates their destruction at a speed nothing in the outside world ever matched. And underneath all of that, underneath the heat deaths and the addiction, there is something else. Something that does not have a clinical name. Something that longtime residents describe in lowered voices when they think newcomers are not listening. They call it bad thing. A psychological phenomenon that sets in gradually after months of deep desert isolation. A cold, creeping mental unraveling that starts so small you barely notice. Paranoia tightening its grip. A darkness seeping through every crack. Thoughts that spiral downward with nothing to slow them and no one positioned to catch them. Here is the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. Multiple residents from completely different decades, people who never spoke to each other, who arrived at different times, who lived in different corners of the slabs, described bad thing in almost word-for-word identical language. Independently, without comparison, whether it is psychological, neurological, or something that isolation and heat and the absence of all structure does to a human mind stripped of every external anchor. It is real. It is documented. And when bad thing takes hold in Slab City, there are no mental health professionals, no crisis services, no safety nets of any kind. There is nobody coming. This is the part of freedom that nobody puts on a poster. Liberty without structure, autonomy without support. The oldest trade-off in human civilization, and Slab City forces everyone inside its borders to stare directly into it with nowhere left to run. Freedom is not a gift here. It is a test. And not everyone passes. So after everything, after the music and the art, the vigilante justice, and the heat and the bad thing, what actually happens to Slab City next? Because the clock on this place is ticking far louder than most people realize. California has been quietly trying to sell this land for years. The state has publicly confirmed it is open to offers. Energy companies are already circling, running numbers on what 640 acres of unobstructed desert sun and wind could generate. This is not a distant hypothetical. It is an active conversation happening right now in polished offices hundreds of miles from the campfire smoke of the slabs. And that conversation could end Slab City overnight. Without warning, in 2015, a group of residents formed the Slab City Community Group, built a campaign, and tried to purchase the land themselves to lock it into a community trust and protect it forever. But even that cracked the community straight down the middle. To buy land, you need money. To manage a trust, you need governance and rules. And rules, even self-written ones designed purely to protect your own freedom, are the very thing Slab City has existed in defiant opposition to since the first trailer rolled in off the highway. The greatest irony in the 70-year history of this place lands like a hammer. The only way to save Slab City is to become just slightly everything it was built to escape. If you have ever wanted to see this place, go now. Go before the energy companies close the deal. Go before Sacramento gives the nod. Go before the music stops and the art gets buried under bulldozers and 4,000 people scatter back into a world that already rejected them once. Because the next time you search for Slab City, you might find nothing but silent rows of solar panels standing where Leonard Knight's mountain used to burn with color in the morning light. Let that image sit for a moment. A man who spent 30 years building something beautiful from donated paint and desert clay, on land nobody wanted, in a city nobody protected, speaking a message nobody else would carry. Gone. Replaced by a solar farm. Clean energy for a city that will never know his name. Slab City is a mirror. The most brutally honest mirror America has ever accidentally held up to itself. It shows us exactly what human beings do when you strip away every system, every rule, every safety net we spent centuries building to contain and protect us. And what we do is extraordinary. We build art from garbage, we play music in the dark, we find community in the most hostile, forgotten corners of the earth. We create beauty from cracked concrete and broken televisions and leftover paint. And we hurt each other deeply and without mercy when absolutely nobody is watching. Maybe the real question Slab City has been asking for over 70 years was never about laws at all. Maybe it has been asking something far more uncomfortable, whether we actually need them. And honestly, standing at the edge of that desert, looking at everything those people built from nothing, I am still not sure anyone has a clean answer. If this cracks something open in your thinking, smash that like button right now. Share this with someone who thinks freedom is simple, someone who thinks rules are optional, someone who has never stopped to ask what actually holds everything together when the rules disappear. Subscribe because every single week we go deep into the places and the stories that the rest of the internet is too comfortable, too distracted, or too afraid to touch. Drop a comment below. One question only. Would you actually live in Slab City? 1 month? 1 week? 1 single night? Tell me exactly where your line is. See you in the next one.